Good morning, my friends. A lot of you don't know what that's all about. But this is a Baccarat coffee mug from Lake Baccarat in Mexico, the best in Bass. I got this mug when I was a kid, going down to Mexico with my father. So welcome, first of all, to the studio. I'm Mike McFarland. You are in McFarland's Corner. Thank you for watching. Today, I'm going to share with you an example of our Let's Talk Fishing channel. It's private part of the channel. You must subscribe, and yes, there's a monthly fee, but it's a very minimal fee. But I want to give you guys a taste of the lessons and the experience that you have in our Let's Talk Fishing. So this is for you, the public, for free. This is an example, really not an example. This is a show that I'm choosing to not put private. I'm exposing to you guys what we do in Let's Talk. In past Let's Talk, we have broken out these boards. We've talked like we do in the fishing report, instead of the lake levels and things. We've actually scripted up lessons. We talk about just about every single thing you can imagine. There's over 81 videos in the archive. It has 50,000 hours of view time. A lot. I mean, viewers have watched 50,000 hours. So, with that being said, let's kind of move forward. This coffee cup starts every single Let's Talk Fishing show. We start off with, just like my father, would sip his cup and say, what a beautiful day. When we were in Mexico, he'd say something in Spanish about a beautiful day in paradise. So we start every Let's Talk. That coffee, it's a beautiful day in paradise. And again, welcome to the corner. All right, today is an intriguing lesson. There's reason. The lesson itself, topic, is why I'm choosing to share this public. I want to clarify 1,000% everything that I know and completely believe about the shells and the shell beds that we will incur or concur, whatever, you'll see across the nation, okay? Specifically here for Lake Fork, because that's where we are, and that's what Let's Talk's all about. Learning about bass fishing, learning about our area, but it's universal. So, with that being said, when I say shell, what do I mean shell? Well, in Mexico, I've never seen shell. Thinking back to my father, what he taught me, he never talked about shell. And where shell came into my fishing career was on the West Coast in lakes like Lake Mead and the Colorado River system, Powell, etc. We ended up getting the quagga mussel. Now, I must remind you, a lot of you like to listen to these telepods. This is a little more visual. You may need to watch a little bit of it so you can see some of these visuals that I'm going to share with you. But on the West Coast, we learned how to find quagga mussel beds, because any mussel itself, whether it's a quagga mussel, zebra mussel, clam, big mollusk, oysters in the ocean, etc., freshwater clams, things like that, they're plankton eaters. Okay, they filter the water, not for chunks of meat and dead fish, and they filter the water for plankton, zooplankton and phytoplankton. Those two plankton sources are the highest source of protein in water. In fact, the biggest whale in the world, the biggest mammal in the world, feeds strictly on plankton and krill, which is the highest protein, very minuscule, very small. So these mussels come in areas, they thrive, and you'll get bedding. That's the thing. You can have mussels or clams, scattered throughout any parts of the body of the water throughout the world. But to have an area that, call it a bedding, call it an oyster reef, or an area that gets heavy with these particular creatures, you must have a high source of plankton. Now, plankton can congregate in rivers where there's eddies, where there's projections of say rocks and things that the current goes by. and those areas collect and slow down the water, and they collect the plankton, and it's called not congested plankton. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank. It's called, it'll come to me in a second. It's basically condensed. It's a high plankton source. So the quagga mussels on the West Coast would build, say, in a big creek swing where Lake Mead had flow coming through, and that swing had a pocket in it. That pocket would fill up with plankton, so we had a good mussel bed, which would have been the quagga mussel bed in that area. And that meant plankton meant shad. Food, plankton is food for shad. Plankton, honestly, if you Google it, is food for everything that's born in the water. Just about every small living organism will feed on the microorganism plankton before it gets to be an adult. Baby bass, baby carp, crawfish, everything. Now some, like shad, continue to feed on plankton their whole life. But baby bass, for example, at a quarter of an inch or whatever, tiniest little thing, it's just an eyeball, that's all you can see, is feeding on plankton. Till it gets bigger, it starts to feed on bugs, minnows, and then it starts to eat, of course, as we know, shad, brim, crawfish. But again, I want to share this with you guys publicly, this show, if you call it, Let's Talk Fishing, as we call it. It's completely unscripted. There's no outline. A lot of times I have an outline. This is just from my raw experience in my heart. Again, how I learned about shell. On the West Coast, it's quagga mussels. On the East Coast and here throughout Texas, we're getting zebra mussels. Okay, this is from OHIV. These are zebra mussels attached to this piece of wood. The difference in the quagga mussels and the zebra mussels is just the size. Quaggas are smaller, like your pinky. Zebras are like your thumb. They replicate multitudes of fashion that they are invasive. Bad deal. Okay. The next one we have is the clam, freshwater clam. There's nothing invasive about it. It's all across the country and the world. It's just a clam. It's a freshwater clam. They're about size as big as a silver dollar. That's a clam, not a mussel. And then you have the big mussel. There's really a weird scientific name for this big mussel. Look, in the video archives, I have done shell bed lessons and talked about those in the past. This specific one is the heart of this lesson. And again, this lesson is a true testimony about how I found out about these. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Shell beds. I know you've seen the pros talk about it. When the pros were here last year, or anyways in May, they were really talking about a lot of the pros fishing shell beds on fork. There's a lot of shell beds on fork. They're not quagga mussels and they're not zebra mussels. We have two types on fork. We have the clam, a lot of the clam, and we have this guy. This is the heart of what I'm going to teach or tell you. Okay, so back to the West Coast. On the West Coast, again, I would use my sonar, which I went through the Don Iovino training courses to learn about sonars. And Don Iovino really was the first Lowrance guy with the paper scroll graph to really give credibility to offshore graphing and finding things that no one else could find. Don Iovino back then with the paper scroll graph could find these suspending fish that you're finding live scoping. Did he live scope? It's a big difference, but he would find them and know that's where they were. He was amazing. He could find a Pepsi-Cola bottle at 50 foot on the bottom. Just amazing. Anyways, I'm going to give credit to you. I went through those courses, so I learned about sonars. Excellent, excellent courses. Throughout the years, I got better and better with sonars. On the West Coast, we learned about double and triple echoes. Everything on the West Coast is hard rock, okay? So with your sonar, you get double echo all the time. Super hard, super fast return. Dense, hard rock. Well, there's a triple echo that can happen, certainly on a Lowrance. Lowrance gives a great triple echo. If you're triple echoing, you're coming back, your signal's coming back so fast, it's really reflecting like off a mirror type subject, which would be quagga mussels. That helps me narrow down where quagga mussels are. I got plankton, I got shad, and I have call it the spot within the spot. That's what I'm going to really title this. The spot within the spot is where you catch the best, the most, and the biggest. You got an area that's a half a football field, but there's one little half a basketball court area in there. That's the spot. That's where it happens. Okay? All right. I found quagga mussels all the time. Won tournaments fishing quagga mussels all the way into 40 to 65 feet of water on the West Coast. We don't fish that here. We don't have quaggas here. We don't even talk about working zebras. And dear God, I hope we don't ever get zebra mussels here. We have them in OHIV. Look, I went down to OHIV and dealt with it. They're nasty. Hard on your line. I come to Texas. And this is the part where you really need to listen. This is just a story. This is true stories. Guide trips. That's how I fell into these. Mark Pack and some of my good buddies here at that time when I first got here, 2013, told me, there's a few shell beds out there, and they made a lesson of it. Some of them were talking about the small clams, which is really, really shallow. This is 5 foot to 0 that you'll see this. They don't go deep. This sky is scattered random. You might get one all the way up in Running Creek. You might find one on the bank here and there, scattered in 4 to 6, 8 feet of water. We're talking about a conglomeratory area where there's a lot of congested plankton, collected plankton, current, and there's a shell bed of these, just like oysters. All right. Nobody back in 2013 talked about that. Mark Pack knew about it, and a handful of other guys. They said, hush, hush, there's not a lot of it. Hush, hush, gotta be hush, hush. Okay. I didn't know what it was yet, 100%, and here's how I learned about it. So in 2014, I started guiding. It's my first few guide trips, and it's about 1st of April, and I have the boat power pulled down about 7 feet, 6, 7 feet of water, and my clients are throwing to some trees in a shallow point. Really, I'll use it. The point's Little Mustang Point. The point between Big Mustang and Little Mustang. There's a road and trees. Everybody should know this. We were power pulled down on the roads, running to the trees, and they were catching fish really good. It was great fishing. I had a 5-year-old girl. She said, fish with us. Well, I said, honey, I don't want to catch those fish. I don't want to fish with you. That's for you. And she said, fish with us, and pushed me, told her dad to tell him to fish with us. And the reason I'm sharing this story is to make it more authentic. I believe the more that I tell this is testimony. It gives the authenticity to what I'm going to teach you, I believe, in my theory. So anyways, she pushes enough for me to fish. I don't want to throw where they're throwing because that's where the fish are. In my mind, that's what I knew about fork at this point, only 1 year under my belt. And lo and behold, I don't realize that out here in deep water is one of the best shell beds I've ever fished. That I'm going to find. And I'm about to find it by accident. So I decide to make a cast. And again, the boat's power pulled down. And I think, I'm in the driver's seat, just kicking back. And I reached over, get the spare rod. And it had a swim bait, a Yamamoto Swim Cinco on a wobblehead. Magic pumpkin or something like that. Anyways, green chartreuse tail. We were swimming it over the flats. Well, I pick it up and I just said, I know where I want to throw. I don't want to throw where my clients catch a fish. I'm going to throw it out there in this deep water back here over my right shoulder. Perfect. Poof. So I chuck it out, backhand it, poof, chuck it out there. I don't even know how deep it is. I know it's deep water out there, plus 18, 20, something like that, Thing sinks, it hits the bottom, the thunk, and then you couldn't count to 5. Wow, 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 wonk, it gets 8. My rod's pulling down, son of a gun. I set the hook and I catch my first 12-pounder out of Lake Fork. The boat's ecstatic, the little girl's ecstatic. What a day we had. It made an awesome day. Any good fisherman has something like that happen. Or when you do catch some fish, a lot of times you want to go over it at least when you're leaving, to go see what's there. What was it? Was it a brush pile? Was it a lay down log? What was it? Well, as we go for lunch, I drive off that hill. It's a ledge. It drops quickly. And then around 16, 18 feet, I don't see anything. There's not a bush, a tree, a stump, a piece of wood, nothing. It's clear, barren as all can be. But on my sonar, I get a triple echo. I scratched my head and I said, triple echo, well, God, dear God, I hope they don't have quagga mussels and stuff in here. Called up a friend. He said, no, we don't have quaggas. We have zebras, and we don't have them in Fork. Thank God. They don't believe they can even be in Fork. Not enough calcium, blah, 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 blah. So I put the thought out of my mind. Triple echo, it means shell, fast reflective shell. Yeah, there's no shell in Fork, and I ignored it. 2014. 2016, 2 years later, I get a call from these guys right from Megabass, which is the same time of year, April. It's also why I'm sharing this lesson. This bite's about ready to get incredible. You're going to catch some of the biggest bass you've ever caught in your life if you take this strategy to heart. 2016 now. It's Friday night, and I get a call. I'm sorry, Saturday night. Mega Bass is always on a Sunday. Saturday night, I get a phone call, and this guy says, "You open? Are you open tomorrow?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Great, I want to book you for fork." I said, "Nah, we don't want to do fork. We got Mega Bass on there." Well, his buddy's in the background. Apparently, I'm on speakerphone, and his buddy tells him, and I can hear him, we just want to fish fork, bird. I'm telling him, "Man, there's 900 boats on fork. You don't want to be on fork. I'll take you anywhere but fork." And anyways, these guys push me to fork. I tell him this. Tell you what, I'll take you to fork tomorrow. But if there comes a point where I tell you I told you so, I'm not that kind of guide. I don't like to tell people that. But in this case, when tomorrow comes, if I tell you I told you so, I'm sorry. I tried everything I could to guide you down the right trail. And fork is not the right trail tomorrow. They said, "Well, we'll be fine. Let's go to fork." At 9:30 in the morning, with 900 boats racing all over like freaking NASCAR, they both said, "We are so sorry. We should have listened to you. There's no place to fish. There's boats on everything. We're down south." Remember, I don't know about shovels yet. This is about to be the click right here. I said, "Guys, I told you so. But I'll tell you what. Let's run north. We'll go about 10 miles up north, get away from a lot of these traffic. There's a ridge up there." And I knew the name of the ridge was Heartbreak Ridge. It's up by the 2946. And I knew that ridge was a huge superstructure. It's stuff I like. It's stuff that a lot of the West Coast offers. Big structural things that go from zero to deep water, but they go a long ways offshore. And anyways, I said, maybe we can fit in on that big structure. In my mind, we'll have a little spot to fish. And so we run the 10 miles. We pull up on Heartbreak Ridge, which is just before the 2946. And I shut down in the buoy line and said, "Good God, my guys, count the boats." There are 31 boats throughout that entire Heartbreak Ridge. 31 of them. Okay. We had one little spot that we could pull into and make a few casts to the ridge. So I put the boat in about 12, 14 feet of water and went down to the ridge, and we're fishing the ridge. I told you guys, don't want to be on this lake on Mega Bass. At one point, I turned, remember now this is 2 years from the last experience, from the first experience with these things. I turned and looked at the guy in the back. I said, "Man, I'm sorry. I tell you what, turn around, do a 180. Just chuck that son of a gun and jig way out there in that deep water. You got nothing to lose." Well, Heartbreak Ridge, any of you that might have fished with me, you see the traffic that's there. I started the heavy part of it for the shell. Not for the old days, not for the old Heartbreak Ridge and the grass and all the things that Heartbreak Ridge offered, but for the shell. And here's how it happened. That guy turned around, threw that jig out there deep, and I'll be dead gum if he didn't whack about a 6-pounder. Well, what do? Throw again. They both turn and start throwing out deep and put on a clinic. All right? I know the client's name's been booked with me ever since. They come back, see me. I'm not going to share that. It's publicly. Privately, I will, but between me and them. We whacked the crap out of those bass. Big ones. 8 pounds, 9 pounds was our biggest. Pushing 10 pounds. When we idle off of that, again, there's nothing. There isn't a stump, a tree, a bush, a lay down, nothing. But I saw a triple echo. And in 2016, Mega Bass, April Mega Bass, I said to myself, there's something to this triple echo on this fork, on fork. It's twice now I've seen triple echo. And I started focusing on finding triple echoes and what do they mean on fork. They're not quagga mussels. At this point, my wheels are turning because of my seasoned veteran fishing, my experience of quagga mussels in the West Coast, the triple echo. This is all starting to do this. And I break out a 1 ounce jig and I start pulling it in this hard bottom area because I gotta know what it is. Is it concrete slabs from old foundations of houses? Usually that would show. The maps don't show that. On any of the maps or any Martin maps, it doesn't say oil well pad where these 2 locations that I got right now. There's no old cottages. And I need to feel it. I'm going to probe it. So I put a 1 ounce jig on. And I start pulling it through these areas. And it feels like round river rock. The dunk, the dunk, Go. My mind's wheeling. We ain't got round river rock and fork. I actually called men that turn machines and turn earth in these parts to ask them, what kind of rock do you find? They don't find round river rock like we see in Colorado River. They find shaly, chunky, hard clay, red clay, but not round rock. And a 1 ounce jig dragged through red clay has a feel, and through sand, and through rubble rock, and this and that gravel, and chunk rock. It has different feel. A 1 ounce jig put in round river rock will clunk through it. It has a feel very similar to a field of this mussel right here. I'm going to get real close right now. I want you to see the back side of this mussel. Wow, it's all scribed and scratched up. That's from our jig dragging up over that thing when it's buried down in the bottom of the mud. We've had these things clamped down on our lines. Not once, not twice, multitudes of times while we are fishing in those areas. And only while we're fishing in those areas. This guy right here has this tentacle, weird tentacle that hangs from it. He's about 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. It suctions to the bottom and he sits up off the bottom from this tentacle and feeds phytozooplankton. What does it mean to me though? Why have I found 2 spots now, triple echoes with my sonar? I'm starting to put together, I think these are shell beds. And I take a look at my mapping and I start realizing north wind, south wind, and I start thinking, okay, just like a river, current, the current goes, where are these collection possibilities? I'm going to go start using my sonar now, and I'm going to go look in these collection areas. So in other words, you got a long main lake point that sticks out, and that south wind blows on that thing 2, 3, 4 times a week. Somewhere on that point, it's catching current and moving some current, you know, it could have some shells. So I start looking. My God, these things are everywhere. I'm telling you, you can find shell beds, meaning like an oyster bed. This stuff, shell on shell on shell on shell, anywhere from 10 to 28 feet of water. The best shell beds that I've found, the most conglomerative, half a basketball court size, are about 14 to 16. They do move, they do relocate. That spot that I found on Heartbreak Ridge, I fished it for several years, 16, 17, 18, 19. It was incredible. Man, I was putting a clinic on fish there time and time again. I put it out there. It got on everybody's mind. It got on the Fish Life app. It got out there, man. Everybody fishes it now. We still catch them there. The pressure's changed it. But here's the weird thing. When the lake went down a couple years ago, almost 9 feet, these guys moved. And that Heartbreak Ridge does not have that same conglomerative amount of shell like it used to. Again, these are given the credit to my theory, to my experience, raw experience. So from 2014, first experience with this, didn't know what it was. 2016, megabass have the same similar thing, catch fish on this triple echoed, super hard bottom. What is it? From 2016, I put this together and I depend on this as a guide. I got 100 spots out there now that I'll milk around and fish these. When they're working shell beds, there is no better bite on the lake because they're there to feed. Okay, it's not about the shell itself. The shell itself helps me guarantee that that's a high plankton source. If the shells are there in a big source, meaning I take a jig and I go, man, that's a really good shell bed. At some point in time, I can guarantee that that thing's going to go off. Just like a deer feeder. I put a deer feeder in my backyard. I don't know when the deer are coming. Why do I put the deer feeder? Because I know they'll come to the deer feeder. So now I get out there and I find some of these good shell beds. And then I'm telling you, in May, there's a lot to this lesson. Realistically, I can tell you, the first shells is early. It's shallow. 6, 4, 6, 8 feet shell beds. And that's the early one because everything's warm training. The big females, I throw this swim bait through shallow shell beds. That's my best bite. Not around wood, not on post-spawn or pre-spawn areas. Shell beds. When the shad are there, the gizzard shad are already there because the plankton's there. The gizzard shad want to lay their eggs in these little shell beds because the eggs hatch and the eggs are right with the plankton. This is science, man. So I'm trying to bring it to light. I also want you to see the depth of what we teach in Let's Talk and how deep we can really go. Sometimes we're just talking about crankbaits, line rod, reels, and where's best to throw it. Today we're talking about this big shell. I got a big hand that can palm a basketball. That's how big that shell is. This shell right here in May, the post-spawn shell beds, are the best because you get a big group of fish. It's a cool area. It's like a dog going to lay on a tile floor. They've been shallow all this time. They're getting too hot now in May. Usually they come out of the backwaters and go feed in these sanctuaries of food. Again, it's not about the shell. Someone asked me the other day, let's just forget the shell then. Let's just talk about these hard-bottom concentrated plankton areas. I need the shell there because it gives me the confidence to utilize it like a feeder, like a deer feeder, a dinner table, if you will. When I know the shell is there, I don't mean to be redundant, but I have a very live, thriving shell bed. It means it's active, and probably every day it has some kind of fish showing up. The shad showing to eat the plankton. The fish showing up to eat the shad. And the crawfish and other things. Uniquely enough, from 2016 to now, we're talking going on 9 years, I've made a living as a guy fishing that. I got not just a dozen clients, hundreds of clients that will believe in that. And here's a testimony. Here's a true story. I don't remember the year, but just a while back. Clients asked me to want a book. They said, Mike, I've heard you really don't do a lot of bed fishing. You don't like to bed fish. We want to bed fish. So, man, I love to bed fish. I just think they're abused on for it. So let's go ahead. I'll show you bed fishing. I said, tell you what, I got a good bite on shell. We'll fish the shell from 7 a.m. to 9:30. That's when we can see the best. And then we'll go bed fishing. All right? Perfect. They booked with me. So from 7 to 9:30, we fish shell beds. At 9:30, I said, let's go bed fishing. I take them into Alligator Cove, and there are 5 and 6 pound bass every 20 yards. It's insane. It's perfect. It's bed fishing's dream. It takes about 30 minutes to catch the first 6 pounder. That sometimes bed fishing takes time. We move. We find the next one. The guy catches the second fish. Over an hour's gone by. We've got 2 fish, 5 and a 6 pounder. I can feel something's wrong. I said, you guys okay? You know what their response was to me? Man, you were right. Take us back to the shell beds. I said, what do you mean? Look at all these bed fish. They said, yeah, but it just took us an hour to catch 2, a 5 and a 6. This shell bed fishing, we were catching fish, and we were catching 5s and 7s and 8s and 9s and maybe a giant. We caught more fish, better fish, hungry fish, eating fish. You didn't have to sit there and deal with it 1 hour to catch a fish off a bed. This shell bed. Remember, it's your deer feeder. The timing is the whole key. That's the best part about it. I can have a 5-year-old kid who doesn't know how to fish. I can have grandpa who can barely fish. Or I can have a freaking stud who knows how to fish. All they got to do is put that bait in that hole when the bass are there feeding. Ain't nothing to it. The rest of the time I'm working to catch them. The rest of the time it's skill. If I got to go out there with a live scope, gosh, I got to have skill. How about you go learn about a bunch of shell beds? Get yourself a nice milk room of good shell beds from every depth, from 6 to 10, from 10 to 20. Find them throughout the lake. North wind blows, create some. South wind blows, create some. Find yourself some good shell. Make sure that they're live with throwing a jig through them or something. Get that clunkety clunk. Once you feel it, you'll know it. Then you can throw a lot of things through them. Slow roll, chatter baits. I mean, you can spinner baits, deep diving crank baits. Find the juice. Find the spot within the spot. You catch more bass, you'll catch bigger bass, you'll have dependency. Then it's timing, just like your deer feeder in your backyard. Uniquely enough, I have about 100 waypoints. When I drive over the waypoint now, I've fished them so much for so many years, I go over my waypoint and all I'm looking is the shad there. And 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of life there. Everything's barren around the area. There is no life. And I come to a shell bed and there's life every time. Because it's food source. It's the mecca, the concentrated, that's the word, concentrated plankton that puts the shell there, that confirms to me this is a hot spot. That's what the pros are looking for. A lot of the rivers in Mississippi and other states here have current and tides and those things. They get the same shell. They get it even more consistent because there's everyday current from tides and dams opening and water being moved. The number one variable you have to watch in Texas is the current changes from day to day. Okay, I can tell you some tips. This is Let's Talk style now. Make Generally, west blow doesn't blow enough consistency to find anything west blown. 90% of the shell beds that you will find are blown from the north or current created from the south. Now let's back up a step. I don't want to confuse anybody. This is why I'm doing this lesson. This clam has confused everybody. When the water went down 6 feet, everybody saw this little white clam all over the place, and they saw a little bit of rubble rock, and there was even speculation on me thinking, man, is there as much shell as I thought? My mind was thinking shallow. Everyone else was thinking now the shell wasn't real. The difference was this shell is less than 5 foot of water. Occasionally you'll see one of these. The less than 5 foot of water on fork is too unstable for these to build up. You get random ones. The 10 to 20 foot is the water that's never been dry before. And this is where they congregate. So don't be confused with those little white areas. Now sometimes these are good. I'll tell you that this principle of this little white clam is very similar. It's no different. It filters plankton. For some reason, where this white clam is in some of the shallow areas, I find smaller sources of bait, smaller fish. I still catch fish, and I know a lot of you have caught fish on the clam beds. It is not the point of today's mussel bed lesson. All right, I want to pull up on a mussel bed and smack 12 fish within, say, an hour's time for 30, 35 pounds. You may have heard this story before, you may not. Brooke was contemplating on guiding this lake. She was trying to learn this lake, and she was putting in her homework to learn this lake. But she didn't have much money, and I was helping her, and sometimes I'd fill up her gas tank. One morning she said, "You're not filling up my gas tank. I'm going to launch at Pope's, and I'm going out there to the shell bed. I'm going to power pull down, and I'm not leaving. I'm not burning fuel." She went out and power pulled down in the spot that I told you my first story, 2014 experience with a shell bed. She power pulled down for that shell bed where I had caught that 12-pound fish. Where I now, of course, have made several years of fishing it. But we power pulled her down right there at 7 a.m. I told her, I've got a guide trip. Obviously, I'll be out and about. If I find a bite, I'll share it with you. We caught some fish. 4 hours later at 11 o'clock, I messaged her and said, "How you doing?" She said, "Not a bite." She still power pulled down in the same location, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Throwing the exact same cast over and over again, the same shell bed, different baits, but the same shell bed. Can you do that? It's difficult. At 11 o'clock, I told her, "We're going to lunch. You want to join us?" She said, "Nah, I'm staying here." I brought lunch. I got some grapes. At 11 o'clock, I drove by her, 11:05. She's power pulled right there on the Mustang Point. I go have lunch. At 11:30, she messaged me and says, "Well, I just caught my first dink. It's about 10 inches. Cool." At 11:55, she messaged me and said, "I'm up to 29 dinks. They're all small unders and maybe a small slot, but I'm having fun." At 12:05, I'm at the register getting ready to cash out, and she messages me, "Uh-oh, get your ass here quick." The big one showed up. By the time we paid, got the boat back going and run to her, she had already caught 5 giant fish. We pulled up on her while she's catching her 5th fish, and it's a 10-pounder. We witnessed her land the 10-pounder, and she now shows us pictures, and 37 pounds for her best 5. All happened in about 15 minutes when they showed up to the shell bed. Do you want that kind of fishing? Do you want to learn more lessons that are in depth and explain the why and scientific approach? We talk about glide baits. This is an average glide bait that most everybody's throwing. Why would I throw this even bigger one? This is 11 ounces. It's just 3.5 ounces. You want to learn more? Here's a line through swim bait, typical size. Here's a bigger size. You want to learn more than you've ever learned before? Why do I use Magic Reaction on all my soft plastics? 81 videos in the archive, just like this one. Look in the description below this video. You'll see a link. There's a link for members only, which is a fishing report, gives you a detailed fishing report, much more than the free report. Also other lakes. But there's a Let's Talk link. Click on that Let's Talk link. Join us. Come over and get all this information. You get access to 80 plus videos already. You're going to have a month of watching videos just to catch up. All right? It's 2025. We're about to kick off the Lake Fork super spring season where we catch the biggest bass of the year. Mega bass is coming. Skeeter bass is coming. Y'all are hopefully coming. Let's go fishing on Lake Fork. I got trips available for later in the year. Everything's filled up right now, but if you'd like to book with me, call me up and tell me you saw this show. You watched it all the way till the end. That's the keywords I want to hear. And I give you a special discount. All right? So, again, I'm Mike McFarland, the Lake Fork Fishing Guide. I'm also the TIFR captain for the Texas Insider Fishing Report, along with world famous Captain Rick Murphy. Bree is unbelievable. She was the model of the year, whatever you call it, in Florida. Just really cool show to watch. Dave Farrell, Texas Insider Fishing Report. Watch for that coming. We're going to be kicking that show off here in April. That's on TV. And again, I'm grateful for all this. I'm grateful for all the sponsors. I'm grateful for all of you subscribers. Share with your friends. Share your experience too, by the way. If you go out there now and you find shellbait and catch a big bass, add some authenticity to this. Help us kind of grow. There's just like in our politics, there's some that believe and some that don't. I've had too many experiences now, and too many with my friends, my clients, my fellow fishermen, that I bet everything I own, including my legs, my arms, and my eyes, that what I'm teaching is a real deal. There's more than one way to skin a cat, but this is a great way to skin it. All right. Hit the like button if you found this good. Comment below. Private message me if you have anything to share or any questions. And again, like I said, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mike McFarland, the Lake Fork Guide.